Hey there. With the IT channel moving as fast as it is, we are going to talk today about how partners stay on top of trends and strategies that are going to drive success. In today's show, we're going to go through customer buying trends. We're going to talk about the AI adoption in the tech channel. And of course, we're going to talk about cybersecurity. Make sure you stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Kristen Fehrenbach, the Senior Director of Microsoft Go-to-Market here at Pax8. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm super excited for our show on Technically Unraveled today, where we talk all things modern work, AI, cybersecurity, and the whole view. But at Pax8 Live, it is not just Technically Unraveled. We have our good friends over at The Game. We also have Pax8 Academy Live. You don't want to miss out on all of the great content that we have coming, obviously on Technically Unraveled, but our sister shows as well. So please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. You don't want to miss out. Today, I am super excited to join a new guest. Her name is Carolyn, and I am so excited to bring you on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So, if you don't mind, we'll just start out. Tell us who you are, where do you work, and what do you do?
Okay, why am I here on the planet right now? My name's Carolyn April. I work for GTIA, which is for some of you out there may have formerly known it as CompTIA, but we are the largest membership association for the IT channel. We represent a lot of folks who belong to the Pax8 community and who belong to our association, and we basically try to do all things good that we can to promote the channel, educate the channel, bring resources to the channel. And I happen to run the department. I'm the VP of Research and Market Intelligence. So I conduct a lot of surveys and studies and go out and talk about them on all things that can help the channel run their businesses better, is basically our main mission.
I love it. We have a lot of involvement with your organization. And so I was just super excited to have you on today. But before we dive into the meat, can you just give us a fun fact? Let everybody just get to know you a little bit.
Fun fact. Okay. I have a lot of fun facts about myself. Some are ready for prime time, not. All right. I'm going to go back in my history. Fun fact about me. I'm a huge Deadhead. Followed the Grateful Dead when I was in the 80s and 90s until Jerry Garcia died in 1995. And I'm talking hundreds of shows and all over the country, drove everywhere. It kind of had a big impact on my life. I'm still big in live music today, but a lot of people who meet me now in my middle-aged years don't know that about me. But yeah, very much
Oh, that
was
is.
I was that person following the band around.
I mean, when you find something you like, you just,
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
you buy the same shirt in multiple colors, it's the same thing. I
yep,
totally get it.
yep, yeah.
All right. That is a good one. All right. Excellent. So then let's just dive right in because you guys have some brand new studies and I'm really excited. But before we dive all the way in, can we just start with an overarching and what would you say the state of the channel is today in 2025?
Well, healthy for one. The state of the channel for all of I've been around the channel for a long time. I won't fully date myself, but for many years, especially as cloud computing came into existence, there was a real trepidation that the channel and what it resold products, was not going to be relevant anymore. And that could not be further from the truth. The channel has very much evolved. MSPs and recurring revenue, the embrace of the cloud and SaaS models. And now, as we will begin to enter the AI era, we're seeing all kinds of opportunity around the channel. And our data really shows that the channel is almost bifurcated. There's a group of the channel that's very much doing well, kind of staying in the traditional lane of mainly selling products and some of the more traditional services. And then there's another half of the channel that's gone full on embracing some of the more innovative and emerging type of things that are out there and different types of business models. And that's kind of what it's done, is made this giant ecosystem where it used to be just resellers and everybody sold hardware and it was the same thing. Now you've got all flavors of companies, and types of companies in the channel, and that's been exciting. Um, One of the reasons I'll also say that the channel is still very healthy is that the appetite for technology is unbelievably robust. Customers want technology. They realize that's the way to be competitive in their own businesses. They're looking to people for help with what technology they should be buying, how they should be implementing it. And so whether you're a small channel company, medium sized or large, you're really positioned well to take advantage of this opportunity if you do your due diligence and figure out where your sweet spots are.
I love it. Okay, so that's a really nice big overview.
Yeah,
But with that one comes well, what are some of the biggest challenges that maybe some of our MSPs and partners are
sure.
dealing with?
Yeah, there are always challenges, as you know, in any business environment. And today, the biggest challenge, and what we're looking at here is some data from the State of the Channel study that we conduct annually. This is the 2025 version of it, and the number one thing up there is external factors. And you're like, what is that? Well, those are things that are mainly out of the control of the channel itself, but it does keep them awake. So we're talking about tariffs, we're talking about inflation. We're talking about any sort of geopolitical unrest, supply chain disruptions, all those things that can really muck with your forecasting, your planning, your customers' budgets, all of those things. Those will keep you up at night. Not a lot we can do about it except plan your business to be resilient. Make sure you have cash flow on hand. Make sure you've got a line of credit open so that if something happens, like the pandemic did a few years ago, you're
Mhm.
not on thin ice already. You have a good backstop for your business. But if you go beyond that, what is keeping the channel worried is worker skills. We're right at this tipping point for AI, and the channel's scurrying right now to try to find employees and workers who have those skills that will take them into the next 5 years, next 10 years. And they're competing against not just other channel companies or even other tech companies for those workers. They're competing against every industry for those workers. And that can be particularly challenging if you are a small channel firm. You can't really meet the salary and the benefits typically of some of the larger
Sure.
companies that might want to pluck them. So that's always a concern. You mentioned cybersecurity at the top of the discussion, and cybersecurity and its ever moving target is both an opportunity but also a huge challenge for the channel. Keeping up with the threat landscape, being ahead of that and making sure your customers are safe is, a nail biter, and it requires you to be really on your toes, have the right people in place. And that, is something that is a perennial. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I mean, and I don't see an end in sight for when there isn't going to be yet another sophisticated cybersecurity criminal out there who figures out the next best thing. So it's the channel's job to try to stay on top of that, and that's a challenge for sure.
No, I can't agree more. And I mean, I think that no matter where partners are at, they're getting on the cybersecurity journey, but like I said, it's a journey. It's not going to end
Yeah,
today, and it's not.
there's no destination. You don't get there. It is when, it's like that
No,
trite saying, but it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Well, cybersecurity is all about the journey. It never ends.
I 100% agree. So we talked a little bit about the partners, and I think something that's really interesting is, the partner sentiment. And when they're really looking out and saying, how are they feeling? Because I mean, you mentioned some of the tariffs, you mentioned, these external hiring. How are they feeling as partners?
I think, like I said, it's hard to paint a broad brush on all
Mhm.
partners. Um, they are a mixed bag for sure. And so their business models really determine a lot of what they might be feeling right now. I think for the most part, I talk to a lot of partners, I'm at a lot of events, and we do a lot of research. And for the most part, you've got an excited group. I mean, people who are thinking, we're at, like I said, we're at the cusp of a new era with AI, which is daunting to some. There's a ton of education that still has to happen, and a ton of work that needs to be done to be able to become quote unquote experts at this. But the fact that there's that much opportunity that is going to exist out there has really got the channel excited. And I think the channel is finally getting it that we are moving away from product sales and transactional sales as being the calling card for the indirect channel. And it's really all about services. The slide we're looking at now is these bubbles are an answer to a question that was on a survey that said if you, a channel owner or somebody who works for a channel company, are at a cocktail party, for instance, and you're just kind of around one of those high top tables talking to some other people there, and these people are outside the industry. You're talking to a dentist, you're talking to somebody who works in manufacturing, whatever it is, and they know you're in computers, but they ask you, what do you sell? Like, what is your computer business? And that's the question we ask. And this is how the channel answers it in our State of the Channel study. 31% say they sell products. That's what they would tell this person. I sell desktops, I sell laptops, I sell some sort of computer products. 37% would say they sell technology services. And then 32% say they would sell business solutions that include a technology component. So they're working with customers on business outcomes and problems.
Mhm.
That's very significant that almost, more than two-thirds here put themselves in the services bucket and only less than a third are in product. If we had asked this question 5 years ago, many more in product. 10 years ago, the product bubble would have been like the predominant bubble. So we're definitely seeing a shift, and that mirrors where the money is, quite honestly.
Mhm.
Partners today are able to go and buy their products and services direct from marketplaces, which is great. I mean, it's easy for them. A lot of times the price is right. They're buying direct from vendors who have their own marketplaces. And for a while, that seemed like a horrible competition for the channel, but the channel's starting to get it. You don't have to compete with that. What your value is helping customers figure out what they should go off and buy, and then all the services that you then provide in and around that transaction. That makes you sticky to the customer. Help them be the consultant that helps them figure out what they need, and then once they get what they need, you've got to secure it. You make sure it's compliant. You maybe put it onto your stack of managed services that you continue to offer them. And that relationship is, X amount actually more profitable than any one-time product sale happens to be. So I think we're moving in a good
100%.
yeah, we're moving in a good
No, it
direction.
does. It's all part of it, right? And I mean, I think, as people went from break fix into
Yeah.
solution sales, like there's a couple stops along the way. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna dip my toe into an interesting, maybe spicy topic, but tariffs are being talked about all around the world. And
Yeah.
so, what is the impact that your study has shown specific to this?
Right. So yeah, this has been a kooky year. I'm just going to say that when it comes to
Mhm.
the economy, specifically as it relates to tariffs. So we decided at GTIA, we thought, well, maybe we should check the pulse of our membership and the channel at large and see how these tariffs are affecting them, or how the threat of tariffs is affecting them, or, because it's been chaotic, right? We don't really have a set system yet. And, tariff today, then they get pulled back the next day. And it's been really hard, I think, for a lot of companies to try to figure it out. And you can just look at the stock market to understand the just helter skelter nature of it all. So we decided to do this tracker. It's a really short number of questions asking, and we're going to repeat it every month for the next few months to see what kind of changes in time we see from the channel. But they're clearly being impacted. And the funny thing is that there are a little bit more channel companies who say they're being negatively impacted so far. So they're seeing their customers pull back on spending. Their cost
Mhm.
of goods is going up if they're doing business with a country that is being impacted itself by tariffs. And that makes it more difficult for them to do business. They have to make decisions about whether they're going to pass those price increases on to their customers, which is a big, is a tough one for a lot of small companies. They don't want to have to go to their customers and say, our goods went up 5%, so now your price is going up 5% or whatever it is. But then there was, on the flip side, there are some companies who are telling us that they are seeing some um, positive impact from tariffs. I don't know how permanent those positive impacts are, because they're mainly that they're seeing a rush on sales. They're seeing product sales go up. And that could be a temporary thing where customers are worried about when tariffs really hit. So they're going out and they're hoarding now. They're like, we're going to go out and buy all the goods at the price they are now, in case in 2 months they're radically more expensive. So that could explain, what some of the results that came back that said they were having a positive take on tariffs. I'd say the biggest takeaway is there's so much uncertainty. And we're going to have to like play this year out, I think, and see where it lands, but it's going to cause some changes that are going to have to happen. Here, yes, you can see here some of the favorable effects, some of the adverse effects that are happening and being reported by our respondents. And these are very real, and they're happening really early, even though some of these tariffs have not fully taken place yet, or they've been changed. I think the uncertainty is the main thing. That's what screws up the stock market, is the volatility of these decisions. And the same thing goes for businesses. So it's hard for them to forecast. They don't know if their customers, what their pricing is going to be. So how do they do sales? How do they forecast what their customers might be spending? Because everybody all the way down the go to market line is going to be affected by this. The technology vendors who sell them the services are affected, and therefore their products may have an increase in cost. So it's a bit of a mess, to be honest, but we're going to keep our eye on it, and interestingly kind of watch for what some of the mitigation measures are that the channel can take to make it less impactful on them in a bad way.
No, that totally makes sense. And I mean, it's just an interesting data point because it's something new, right? And as soon as something
Yeah.
changes, I think we all go, "Ooh, okay. So what do we need to do?" So I think I love that you guys are tracking it and at least have an insight. But as Pax8, I mean, we've got a really strong focus on SMB. So I mean, can you
Mm-hmm.
share some recent studies or insights from your latest buying trends, tech habits? Like, what are you seeing specific to maybe that SMB group?
Sure. Yeah, the we just did a study of SMB buyers. So I haven't published this research yet, so you're getting a little sneak peek here of some of it. But we went out and we went to about 8 different vertical industry companies, between 2 employees and 250. That was our definition of SMB, which is typical for the channel. They're serving customers around those parameters. And we asked them all kinds of questions about their budgets, their attitudes about technology, what's exciting them today, what's worrying them today. And it's an interesting mix. SMBs are super thirsty for technology. They love it. They want more of it. Their budgets went up year over year, um, and they're really interested in AI. Um, but they also need, what is very clear, they need a lot of help and a lot of guidance on what to be buying. Some of these SMBs, if you ask them, what would you do with a windfall of money, like on here, most of them say they would like to invest in innovative stuff like AI and kind of get cutting edge. But almost as many, are looking, if you look below on this box here, still want upgrades to some of their basic stuff, their infrastructure. My staff could be more productive if they had new laptops, they had new desktops. We refreshed our website. So that's good news for the channel, because for, like I told you at the top, we seem to be in 2 camps. There's more of a traditional channel and those who are really trying to be as innovative and cutting edge as they can. There's a place for both here. And the SMB customer is that perfect customer for this, because they still need all the infrastructure and the basics that the channel has known how to sell for years. And they
Mhm.
have a real keen interest right now in some of the things that are emerging.
I could not agree more. And I mean, I think this kind of brings us right into AI. And I mean, is it a show or a conference or anything if you don't say AI multiple
I
times?
know. I
But
know.
it continues to grow, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's an exciting time to be here because we're getting to see all this in real time. But what have you really seen in the shift from last year, maybe to this year?
Yeah, there was a shift, and we've been kind of tracking AI in the channel since 2023, since our state of the channel study after the big chat GPT explosion on the scene that got everybody going, what is this? And honestly, from 2023 and 2024 were years of mostly experimentation by the channel. They were
Mhm.
doing they were playing around with it in the sandbox. They were trying to apply it to their internal operations, and they still very much are, especially MSPs. There's all kinds of ways that AI can really create more efficiencies and kind of streamline processes and automate a lot of tasks for MSPs. So that's just, it's perfect for their
Mhm.
business, because the thing you want to be is as lean and mean as an MSP as possible, so that everything is kind of automated and repeatable, because you've got so many customers on contract. If you're dealing with every one of them in a customized way, it's totally inefficient. So that's what's been happening this past year. We saw more revenue generation coming out of AI. So partners were starting to sell it, as opposed to simply working with it and experimenting with it internally. It's still not, the revenue generation is not overtaking the internal experimentation. They're almost split. Partners are telling us, but they're starting to roll things out to customers. Now, as we know, AI is kind of, it's not really a product unto itself. It's really an AI, it's a functionality. It's an AI, it's an
Mhm.
enabling technology that's built into other things. So what partners are selling is not really, I'm selling you an AI box or a product or whatever. They're selling something that's AI enabled or has AI functionality, and then they're teaching their customers how to take advantage of that. So there's been a big boon, at right here at the beginning, of partners doing a lot of consulting work around AI.
Right.
Customers are asking, "Hey, what's this AI thing?" And I know I must need it in my company because I can't stop hearing about it, but how? I don't know anything about it. And that's a perfect chance for a channel company to go in and say, all right, we can do an explainer for you. And let me look at what your company needs, and we can help you figure out where best to apply it. And that conversation takes place without any discussion of even selling the technology yet. So those are consulting dollars, which are very lucrative, high margin. And then you can get into what you're gonna use, what you're gonna sell them. So that's kind of the first stages of monetization that we're seeing with the channel
Mhm.
today. And then there were things like, all those partners out there that sell Office 365, just to throw one
Mhm.
vendor into this, the Copilot piece of Office 65 is something that customers are very interested in. How do I turn this on? How do I use it? So there's a market there for things like that. But we have a long way to go and many, many more interesting companies that partners will be dealing with to really
Sure.
see the full potential of AI's opportunity for the channel and how well they can do with their customers in selling it.
So do you think it's the customers? Because on these slides that we were showing, there's an increase in budget, right? So do you think that it's the natural customer being interested that's helping these budgets increase as we go forward?
Um, Hard to say, but probably a little bit. Small companies hear about AI as much as all of us do, since it's really in the mainstream media. It's not something that's nichey to just us in our industry. And a lot of times, ChatGPT was really very consumer, right, in the beginning. So
Mhm.
it's had bled into everybody's home. If you have a college student, you have to think about whether they're writing their papers with that and things like that. But so yes, so any owner of a small business that might be a customer of the channel is going to be asking about that, and wanting to know what AI might mean to their company, and driving that. But budgets for technology in general among SMBs have risen pretty steadily. I mean, during the pandemic, there was a bit of a pause, but that was kind of everybody was
Sure.
putting the brakes on some things. So we saw like a blip in the data. But since we've come out of that from 2023 on, we've seen increases in budget because I think finally SMBs, large companies had gotten it for a long time, but SMBs are starting to realize that technology can make them be a lot bigger of a company. The internet helped them be larger. They can sell things over the
Right.
internet. They can really increase their reach, their size, how big and impressive they look to the outside world by their use of technology. And so we've found that, an SMB today, whether it's retail or healthcare or manufacturing, what they look like in terms of their acumen around technology versus some SMB 10 years ago is vastly different. We ask them, where do you feel like, how good are you at implementing technology? How well versed are you in technology? Do you have a good vision? And SMBs are pretty confident that they do. So that bodes well for their budgets. They understand that innovation is important, and the way to innovation is to buy technology.
So then we've looked back and then how we've come forward in AI. But if we look a year out, what do you think is going to happen in the channel with AI?
Okay. A year out, I think we are this despite AI, out of the gates in a crazy hype cycle right now. I still do believe that the progress the channel is going to make will be iterative year over year. We're not going to next year it's not going to be that every channel company has a AI practice and they're, blowing it out of the park. But but we will see incremental steps and you'll see more like you're looking at here. You saw this giant jump year over year last year. 53% of our respondents for this 2025 State of the Channel told us that AI would be a significant revenue driver for them this year. That was up from 32% that said it in 2024. So that's a big jump. And I think in
Hmm.
2023, it was really low. So we are seeing quite a bit of progress. Um, and I think, like I said, the consulting piece of this and trying to teach customers about the need for AI and how it can be used is going to be important. One of the challenges for the future, the next year or so, is going to continue to be that skills shortage of trying to find workers who you can put in your organization who get it, who understand AI and are the experts. So that's going to be a challenge. But I I expect and continue to believe that we are going to see more coming on the revenue side as each year progresses. And there are going to become channel companies that will be known for AI. So it'll be a practice, just like we have cybersecurity experts in the managed services space. You're an MSSP, and that's our
Yep.
thing, that's our niche. You will see the same thing happening with AI experts in the channel.
That absolutely makes sense. And I mean, while we're on cybersecurity, I mean, I know we talked a little bit about it being a journey, but I want to just understand from you, how are the MSPs managing risk? Because the landscape's changed. And I mean, guess what? We're not the only ones using AI. So, what is your view
Yeah.
on that?
No, and this is if you want to talk about challenges, this is another big one. MSPs themselves are, are a target, as we know, for security issues because they're sort of a centralized spot to access all of these customers' networks. And we've seen breaches happen that way. So a lot of MSPs we've asked them about have spent the last few years really trying to shore up their own internal cybersecurity practices. Which seems like a no-brainer, but you wouldn't believe the number that hadn't like their own house wasn't quite in order. So they're spending a lot of time doing that. And the other big thing is what we found in our SMB study is that the smaller companies will tell us cybersecurity is important, but they're not putting their money where their mouth is yet. They have
Mhm.
I like to call it the good enough mentality about cybersecurity. They think they're spending enough. They think they have enough in place. And in reality, especially with today's landscape, with AI, especially, and just the number of vectors that you can get into an organization, they don't realize that they don't have enough. Good enough isn't enough, and it's especially important for SMBs because they're the most vulnerable. They think that the bad actors aren't interested in their companies because they're small, but that's not true. They don't just go after the large enterprises. And if they do, the large enterprises, A, can pay the ransomware, B, have insurance, C, can weather the storm because they've got money in the bank. Smaller companies that get hit,
They're
there's
done.
stats out there that you show it's a terrible percentage, but if you get hit with a big ransomware attack or anything that takes down your systems even for a day or two, these companies go out of business. And that's
Mhm.
you don't want to be the salesperson that just uses fear mongering with your customers, like you better buy this or you're
But it's
putting yourself,
real.
but it is very real. So the biggest thing I think that those selling cybersecurity today need to convince their customers of, it's not just about the outside protection. It's not about the wall keeping people out, but you need to be using technology that is more proactive and does risk assess your environment, and then you have proactive tools in there that will spot a potential problem before it gets to that wall and starts trying to knock it down. Where a lot of small companies are way too reactive in how they deal with cybersecurity, and a lot of our really smart channel companies that are selling cybersecurity get that, and they're very much moved into a proactive, zero trust risk assessment approach to cybersecurity, and that is really the way to go.
I love it. And I love that you brought all this information too, because I'm just like reading it as we go. Like there's so much good stuff. But I mean, one, I know you're very busy. So I want to say thank you so much for the time.
Of
But
course.
before I let you run off on me, I want to make sure that as we close out, do you have any advice for MSPs or partners and how they can really position themselves for success?
Yeah, well, there's probably a lot of advice out there right now. I would say that it is very important. More so, we're at the beginning of another big hype cycle. I think the last one was when cloud computing, which was about 15, 16, 17 years ago. Right now, on the precipice of AI becoming mainstream in a lot of companies, is that if you want to position yourself well, do all you can to get up to speed on it and figure out what your niche is. You don't have to be all things AI to everybody, but figure out what your business model and your company is good at, whether that's AI as it relates to security or AI as it relates to a particular vertical that you're specializing in, and then work with customers on that. So don't, be innovative and don't get left behind. So that's the number one thing. And the other thing is embrace services. Continue this trajectory that we are seeing
Mhm.
where the real money and the real value for your company is being consultative, working with your customers on business solutions and not just trying to force product sales onto them. Those are important, but those come on the back end. The customers would like to sit down with you and talk about how they can make more money, and that's a consultation. So the more you embrace services, the more you embrace future techs like AI, I think the better positioned you're going to be for the future.
I love it. Carolyn, I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. This has been super insightful. And so I would look forward to one, seeing you beyond here soon, but then
Yes, we
two, having you
will.
back on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I had a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, of course. All right. If you don't know and you've not seen NMSP Legends, Carolyn's going to be on this upcoming episode, so you're going to want to check it out. But before we wrap up today's show, I want to throw it out to the Copilot Tip of the Week.
Wish making videos was as simple as writing a sentence? With Visual Creator and Copilot, it is. Hey, I'm Willis. This week's Copilot Tip of the Week is all about Visual Creator, your built-in tool for fast AI-powered video creation. Wondering where to find it? It's right inside Copilot. In the toolbar, click Visual Creator. No extra software or editing experience needed. Here's how it works. After you click on Visual Creator, you'll see a few prompts ready to go. But let's make our own. Type something like, create a 1-minute video with stock media, how to improve productivity with AI. In just a couple of minutes, Copilot delivers. Stock media, voiceover, matching visuals. Just like that, your video's done. Want to make changes? Click Open to launch Clip Champ. You can swap footage, tweak audio, update text, and even change formats for Reels, posts, or YouTube. Type a prompt, get a polished video, all with Visual Creator. That's your Copilot Tip of the Week. See you next time.
Thank you so much, Willis, for our Copilot Tip of the Week. Now, I want to make sure that you know for Beyond 2025 in Denver, we are going to have two live shows, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. I will be one of the co hosts along with Ryan Walsh. Please make sure you tune in live and like, share, subscribe so you don't miss out. We look forward to seeing all of you partners there at Beyond. And please make sure you tune in if you're not able to join us this time. We'll see you soon, everybody.